Chapter 44. A moment after the Wicked Queen disappeared, her spells broke, and Jack, May, and Philip all dropped to the ground. As they all groaned through the pain, Rapunzel pushed herself out of her mass of hair, desperately sucking in air. Her guards, now free of the Queen's spell as well, hurried into the room, far too late to do anything. "No!" Rapunzel shouted, searching the room. "The Queen! Where did she—" And then she went dead silent, as her eyes fixed on the stone table in the center of the room. Jack followed her gaze and noticed something chilling. Snow White's body was gone. Rapunzel shouted something at the guards, but was interrupted by a crack from the ceiling above them, as the rest of the palace began to shake even harder. Snow began to rain down as half the ceiling started to cave in, falling almost a foot before halting, barely holding itself together. Another crack sent a block of snow crashing right through the floor of the room, an inch from Jack's hand. "May!" Jack shouted, pushing himself to his feet and helping her up. "We have to get out of here." May looked up, and for a moment the princess barely seemed to recognize him. Finally, though, she nodded. Before she could straighten up completely, Jack yanked her out of the path of a block of snow, which crashed down right where she'd been standing. Philip caught her before she hit the ground, and together Jack and the prince pulled May past Rapunzel's guards and out of the room, Jack's shoulders screaming in pain with every movement. He glanced back into the chamber at Rapunzel, who seemed to be casting some kind of spell, but falling snow quickly obscured his view. Her guards could take care of their queen. Right now, Jack had enough to worry about, just getting the three of them out. The hallway back to the courtyard felt at least 3 times longer than it had before, with huge gaps cracking open in the floor in some places, the ceiling and walls collapsing in others. Jack and Philip didn't bother letting May walk. Instead, they carried her as fast as they could toward the end of the hall. Snow as hard as stone rained down on them the whole way, and Jack heard Philip grunt as one large clump hit him on the shoulder. Despite the pain he must have felt, the prince never paused. Finally, the 3 of them burst through the door at the end of the hallway, into the room with 3 doors. There they skidded to an immediate halt. There was nowhere to go. The entire ceiling had fallen in, blocking the way out to the courtyard. Fortunately, some of the crumbled rock had actually formed a makeshift ramp to the roof. After a shrug between them, Jack and Philip carried the princess up the ramp and out the castle. From the inside, the palace's destruction was almost awe-inspiring. Most of the towers had completely tumbled down, crushing the castle below, while the beautiful spirals of ice had crumbled in several places, parts of them whipping through the air, carried by the biting wind. Only one of the palace's towers still stood, and even that one looked on the edge of collapse. "We do not have time to watch," Philip screamed over the wind at Jack, then began moving on, forcing Jack to keep up. The ramp they were climbing sloped up to one of the ramparts, which they quickly carried May along, desperately looking for a way back down to the courtyard. Unfortunately, there wasn't one, at least none that was still standing. They found a few crumbled stairways, but nothing that even came close to a rampart. Jack threw one look over to the outer wall, only to shake his head. The rampart had to be at least 50 feet up. There was no way they could jump. "What do we do?" Jack yelled in frustration. Philip just stared at him helplessly, knowing as well as Jack did that there was no way out. Jack whipped his head around, desperately searching for something, anything that would save them. But the only way out was to go back down into the palace. Suicide, even if the way was still open. Already Jack's hands and feet were going numb. Soon they'd all freeze to death if the collapsing palace didn't kill him first. "It can't end like this," he screamed into the wind. "It won't," said a voice from behind him. Jack spun around, only there was no one there. "Who said that?" he shouted. 2 hands appeared out of nowhere. They reached up and pulled back on something invisible, a hood. Behind it was a woman's face, her black hair dashed white with snow and red white with blood. "I bet you never saw this coming," said the Red Hood. And that's the end of chapter 44. 2 more chapters to go, my friends. See you tomorrow.